Welcome. Today I wanted to talk about the inescapable. Used in a few videos recently. I talk about how faith is inescapable, or it's implicit in our own existence. We have faith in science, we have faith in people not harming us, we have faith in the movement of our body, the control of it, we have faith in the operation of our organs. And even if something comes up, like our organs start to fail and we don't have faith in them anymore, there will be many other things we still have faith in. We don't actually ever dismantle faith completely at all. We mostly have faith for most parts of the universe that we can't control. And this is inescapable. This is just part of consciousness, because there's no separation between our consciousness and God, or infinity, or existence, the great perfection, enlightenment, all the many, many words we can use to describe this. And it's also inescapable to have this awareness, this consciousness, this experience of mundane life, of ordinary life, of just being. Sometimes it's exceptional, sometimes it's awful, and many times it's just a mixture balancing out to be something that seems neutral. But beyond comparison, beyond evaluating things as good or bad, positive, negative, so on, our ordinary present awareness, attention, existence, even this temporary vessel of the body, is the doorway to the great perfection, to God, to love. And it's inescapable that we're going to go there. We're going to be dragged if otherwise. We can resist, we can try to cling to limited viewpoints and cling to suffering. And that's usually what happens even in our addictions. Whether we're addicted to drugs, we're addicted to sex and food, addicted to popularity, wealth, comfort, addicted to luxury and vacations and beautiful sights and vistas. Most come with some layer of extreme suffering at a certain point. The harder we cling, the more intense disease and withdrawal and suffering and dissatisfaction can be. And this is because that's our own making. We could just be free and infinite, which is our innate nature. Like I said, it is inescapable in the end, because infinity is what is the only thing that is. It's beginningless, it's endless, it's all present, it's all pervading, and everything that we think it pervades is also only infinite. There's no not infinite. There's no not Brahman. And so the more we try to run away from this fact, the more we try to take our attention and our mind and close it in on an imaginary point or a specific point, try to keep recreating one type of memory, one pattern, controlling the infinity of existence, the more we do that, the harder it is. And the more we train our consciousness to not recognize that we are suffering and we are resisting infinity and the flow of love and cooperation and bliss and simplicity and so on, the more we suffer. And so there's this essence of the reason we hold on is because we really think, we really believe this is what's going to bring us happiness and pleasure and joy. And we're afraid of the unknown, we're afraid of the mystery, we're afraid of pain, we're afraid of it ending, death. And so we get greedy, we get attached, we cling, we get really controlling over infinity to make something very finite, very repetitive, happening over and over again. Even if we suffer because we are so focused on that one moment, that little temporary moment of pleasure or joy, to the extent that even sometimes we'll do our things that we think we enjoy and they're not enjoyable, they're numbing, or we're desensitized, or we're just distracted during it, during food, during whatever. And so it's not even as enjoyable as it often is, but we know every now and then we click into that moment and it does feel good, and we feel that sensation of being alive, that sensation of pleasure, that sensation of whatever we happen to have learned to like. And so we keep trying to control the universe and make it happen again and again and again. But it becomes harder and harder usually. And then we get more tension and more suffering. And because we are looking for this goodness in our attachments, we are bound to look at the true goodness, which is reality itself, the all-loving, infinite presence that is just here. And that is amazing. We are bound and destined to realize love, to realize truth, because it is our very being, and there's nothing we can look at, nothing we can say, nothing we can do that isn't completely one with that loving truth being, God, whatever. And this is where that inescapable bliss comes in that I've spoken about in a few videos ago. It's just natural. It's just the process. It's just part of the thing. It doesn't mean we'll experience the same types of vibration and bliss. It doesn't mean we'll experience the same intensities. In fact, we'll never experience the same thing again. The only thing that's the same is just the ever infinite. But in terms of individual, seemingly finite experiences, these are all impermanent and temporary and constantly changing. Even once we leave this body, even though there's no we to leave the body. It's just infinite patterns happening for X amount of time, constantly shifting and weaving, and our attention is temporarily in this spot. And this attention is manicured by the patterns it goes into. We go into the patterns of eyes and tongue and skin and ears and memory formation. All these things are basically temporarily designed to be limited. We call that evolutionary adaptation to specific aspects of the universe completely created by infinity and is infinity. But our attention will disseminate and not be exactly the same thing once we go beyond this body. Doesn't mean everything we experience is imaginary necessarily, just that we've been in a state of accepting this wave of limitation that is human history and human biology and planet Earth and so on. I'm not going to go into conclusions about evolution, about metaphysics of the human consciousness. These are just ways I feel I can describe it that connects us to an understanding of infinite consciousness that is always infinite, but has the capacity for any amount of time to experience forgetfulness, forgetting itself, lack of self-awareness, and so on. But because truth and reality are always present within everything, it is inescapable that we will tend towards this. In the Dharmic religions, they say it might take lifetimes for this to happen, different incarnations or what have you. And I don't necessarily think of reality in this cut and dry way. I do believe reincarnation happens in some way, maybe even many ways that are described, but I also think the dissemination of consciousness and patterns goes far beyond what we kind of perceive and imagine as reincarnation. It's not really limited to this theory, I don't think. But we're bound to realize it eventually, whether this body is upright and living or decaying into the soil or ash in the wind. And I think it's very comforting when we can come to that insight amongst the infinite insights there are, seeing like, oh, it's gonna happen. It's impossible. It's like literally all around me. I'm surrounded. There's no way to win the battle of resisting love. I can go for millennia, but eventually it will break down my walls. And I'll see there weren't any walls anyways. It was just all the play of infinity doing exactly what it needs to do to remain infinite. And it's not even a necessity with worry and stress, like, oh shit, we gotta make sure we experience this limited form of, tension and conflict, otherwise we won't be infinite. It's just this all-pervading acceptance and love of potentiality and manifestation that is the essence of infinity, because there's not really a need for walls. And this is a beautiful thing in terms of realizing what kind of good and bad are, what pain and pleasure are. Not pain and pleasure, but suffering and true happiness. Suffering really just is that ignorance and fear of retraction and separation and this misbelief. Suffering is just not seeing the truth. And true happiness and that bliss and love the yogis describe is just being reality, the unlimited. And so it's interesting to think in this way, to see this, not even just think, to actually experience it a little bit, because you get to this funny point of there's no black and white, good and bad, but there is this natural sense of virtue without really tying virtue to virtue ethics or specific theories and frameworks derived in language relating to virtue, but rather all of our suffering, all the pain, all those things that morality and ethics and habits try to address, and lifestyles and creating comfort and convenience, is just the untruth, is just the not realizing the boundless nature of our very present attention and beingness and body and everything. And that true happiness, that bliss, that ecstasy, that serenity, that many forms of good pleasures, the deep pleasures we seek and want, that is just infinity itself. Because infinity, being unfettered by its own capacity to create infinite sentient beings that experience infinite forms of suffering, is bliss. And there's just this natural pull to get sentient beings out of their falsehood, because the truth is just what's there. The infinite is just what's actually present. It's like trying to paint on a river. The river is just constantly flowing, and we're just trying to create the same image on the water, but this is not possible. We keep trying to create this limited reality in the stream of infinite consciousness, but it's inescapable that it will rip away, it will float away, it will dissolve. And so the virtue that is innate to infinity, to get sentient beings out of their false suffering isn't even as separate as I'm a good person and I'm trying to help that person in pain. It is just the natural, innate, inescapable process of infinity, because it's actually impossible to put finitude on it. Because it's not limited by temporality. So somebody could be doing this finite suffering, trying to misperceive reality and forget infinity, trying to control it, trying to confine it, trying to paint an image that is filled with bounds and ends upon infinity. They could do that for 1 billion, 2 billion years, let's say. But because infinity is infinite, it is infinitely more than 2 billion years. It is equally infinitely more than 2 seconds. So the time doesn't really matter in the scope of infinity. And because of this innate, all-pervading essence, eventually all that painting on the river, all that controlling reality to experience something finite, even if it's filled with suffering and pain, will dissolve. It is inescapable. So dive into the inescapable and see what happens. Thank you for watching. I'm signing off. Oh no.